Henry Louis Baltimore.
The first African-American drum major ever at MSU.
He set the path for us.
I think Henry was killed.
Abducted and killed, plain and simple.
Ladies and gentlemen, your Spartan Marching Band.
My mother told me when we were little, I tried to poke him with a broomstick. Like, who is this? Who is this in my space? And, but she said that after a while, we were just inseparable. We called him bruh, and I would be like, come on, bruh, come on. I loved it when he decided that he was going to come to Michigan State as well. I was so proud of him when he became the drum major, leading the Michigan State University Marching Band. Thinking back upon all the times when I used to just be crazy when we were at home. They would go downstairs and they'd be beating the drum all the time, and I would be, they driving me crazy.
I am right in the middle of 8 kids. I enjoy the years that I had an older brother, because there are some people don't even have that to look forward to have an older brother. Henry was a psychology major, music major. He came up with a new style of drum major. Nobody never seen that. They'd have a football game, but actually they'd watch the game, but they couldn't wait for the band, or they couldn't wait for the parade. They couldn't wait for Henry to come up with new steps. He'd get those steps from my sister. They dance all the time. After she'd teach him a new step or something, he'd carry it on to the band. Whatever it is, a side step or however it was, and he would coordinate that with his band members. And then everybody liked it. And from then on, you see all the bands all over. It was a pattern that just struck. And Henry, he would and then he would high kick all the way out to the field and reach way back.
I knew Henry from junior high when we were 12 years old, and we went through junior high school together, and then to Michigan State together and roomed together at State. Henry was always a bright light, a very outgoing personality, a smile on his face at all times. Everybody wanted to be Henry's friend. He was just that type of a easygoing, very happy person at high school and in college. As much as they were integrated schools, the lunchroom and activities were very segregated. So you had your tables that the black sat at, the tables that the white sat at, and there was not too many intermingling. But if you would draw a Venn diagram with circles of the jocks, the popular kids, we sort of overlapped all of them. We were having fun. We were playing music, the drums. We enjoyed sports. We enjoyed girls. So what more could two guys want?
They had a party, probably a little bit of weed there. It wasn't uncommon back in the 70s, of course.
Tell me that you love me, do you got a little thing I wanna do? Yeah!
The first couple times that he came by our apartment and just sat around and got high with maybe Paul and Henry, I'm not sure why he came.
March 3rd of 1973.
Henry was the only one in the apartment. He came in with a gun,
Where's the money? Where's all the dope?
pistol whipped him,
Tell me where everything is, or I'm gonna blow your head off.
tied Henry up. And so I think Roy Davis just got the impression that we were funneling a lot of drugs through the school, had cash money flowing out of the drawers. We just had our own personal stash, like everybody at the time. I think he was mad and frustrated, so that's when all of a sudden he saw my golf bag, grabbed that, saw a leather coat, saw some sweaters, grabbed those. So he figured, I'm going to get something of value out of that. He was shaken up by it.
His roommates indicated that he became different in terms of his personality. He was quiet. That's not my brother.
Immediately after the robbery, nothing happened.
I think that during that time, he may have been fearful.
He wanted everything to be nice. And I think it was finally when his father came and talked to him to say, this is crazy. You can't have your cake and eat it too.
So Henry gets robbed, doesn't really want to do anything about it, waits 10 days to file the report, finally files the report at the police department, actually names Roy as the guy who robbed him, ended up getting some booking photos from Flint PD where Roy was from, put together a six-pack lineup, picked out the person who happened to be Roy Davis out of the six-pack lineup. He was charged with armed robbery at the prosecutor's office, and within a month of the robbery, he was actually arrested in Flint. He was given a bond. While he was out awaiting his trial, he stopped by Henry's apartment.
Roy Davis was scared shitless.
I could be doing some serious time. I can't do this, brother. You gotta help me. I can't go to jail for all this time. Look, I'll bring everything back. I'll double your money.
I think he was scared. I think he was scared to testify because Roy had been threatening what he would do if Henry did testify. So he just said, never mind, I'm not showing up. That's actually a criminal offense to threaten witnesses like that.
That's when Henry went back to the police and said, okay, you know what, I've changed my mind. Wasn't a big thing. I want to withdraw charges. And they were like, well, it's too late, son, because it's this, the state wants to prosecute him. It was now no longer his case, like in a normal civil or other type of case where it's Henry Baltimore versus somebody. Now it was the state of Michigan versus Roy Davis, and Henry was just their key witness. Roy brought all the stuff back.
Come on, man. I just brought everything back. You said you were gonna drop the charges.
Yeah, but I can't.
Well, you're gonna have to not show up. I'm gonna come here.
The big theme in this case is that if you testify, bad things are going to happen to you.
I remember the date that he had the first arraignment. Roy Davis came by, and for a couple hours he sat with Henry to make sure he didn't go.
He doesn't show up to court. They have to dismiss the charges because without your victim, you can't charge somebody, right? They dismissed the charges, reissued the charges after they issued the bench warrant for Henry, forcing him to testify.
Henry was getting suggestions from everybody.
There was a couple phone calls that were made to the apartment too, again, threats.
And then finally, we all sort of convinced him in one way or another, you've got to file through with this. This man, he put a gun in your mouth. He threatened to kill you. This is not your friend.
I know that when we went home for Memorial Day weekend, he was a little quiet. He wasn't his usual vivacious self, around the family. The one thing that he said is, I'm really nervous about going to court. I said, it'll be okay. But, you have to do this. And we didn't talk about it anymore. But I'll always remember that drive back. That was the last time that I saw him. That keeps playing in my mind what he said of how he was really nervous about going to court. My response was, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. That was the last thing that I said to him.
Henry had class that day. His roommates all had class, so nobody was home, that we believe.
It was daytime, I think mid-morning.
A couple witnesses in the report remembered coming home, and there was a green car parked in their assigned parking spot. There's two black males pounding on Henry's door. As the male and female witnesses went to walk into their apartment, they even asked the male and female witnesses,
Do y'all know where Henry is?
We just got here.
They were only in their apartment for a couple minutes. They then left, and when they left, these two male subjects were still knocking on Henry's door. And when they walked back into the parking lot, that green car was still parked in their assigned spot. My assumption is that Henry was home, probably scared to answer the door. Somehow they coaxed him into answering the door, because again, there's no forced entry. They somehow commandeered him to by force or coercion or some other way get into their car, and who knows what happened to him after that.
One thing we always did is we tried to eat together, amazingly. And so that evening around 6, when he didn't show up for dinner, we're like, have you seen Henry? Did he talk to you? Did he, and we were like, no. And then we started looking around and we're like, it doesn't look like he's letting his cars in the parking lot. There's nothing missing other than just him.
I was supposed to type up a final exam for my brother. And so I was waiting for him to call me so that I could go and get the paper to type up. And I kept calling. His roommates finally called me back, and they said that he had not shown back up at the apartment. My father came up and we went to the apartment. We saw that all of his things were still there, his keys, his clothing, his wallet, everything.
The next day, we went to the police to report he was missing, and the police were like, what are you guys worrying about? He's a guy. He's probably shacked up with a woman somewhere. He probably was out on a bender and is just sleeping it off right now. They're like, come back in like another 24 hours. Let's give him 48 hours to see if he surfaces.
The first thought that the police had is that he just fled, and they knew he didn't want to testify. And we tried to say, but he wouldn't leave. If he left voluntarily, how did he leave? He wouldn't have left without his car and his keys and his wallet and any of his clothes. That just doesn't make sense.
I think because he was a black man, they didn't really care. And we didn't have any hard evidence. Because again, we couldn't say, look, the door was broken in. There was, blood on the wall. There was furniture thrown around. All we could say is, you don't know this guy.
Our feeling was they're not doing enough.
They did police work a lot differently back in 1973. The report isn't super detailed, a lot to be left to interpretation. Again, no physical evidence whatsoever. Both detectives that worked this case have since passed. If we went to an armed robbery today, we would take photographs. We'd probably take a lot of that as evidence.
There actually came a trial for Roy Davis, because the prosecution did keep postponing it to what they could, because it was like, we're missing our key witness. But finally they were like, no, we have to proceed. And so they didn't have their key witness. But it was like, well, we can't pin the actual crime on this guy because it's all hearsay. There's no pictures, no crime. And so it was more like, because of your record, we're going to give you a year.
Yeah, that's the ironic part about this whole thing. So several months later, after Henry's been missing this whole time, Roy pleads guilty to the original armed robbery, ended up getting sentenced to 6 months in the county jail. And that probably would have been the end result anyways. That's the tragic part of this story, is that the armed robbery would have ended how the armed robbery ended, and Henry certainly didn't need to go missing because of it.
In my feeling, Roy got away with the crime.
So 348 Oak Hill, this is where Henry Baltimore lived back in May of 1973. The mystery question is, what happened at his doorway that day?
I got a call from a detective out of the East Lansing Police. He had said, I want to take it on and try to solve this cold case.
He was genuine. He kept us informed every step of the way. We felt that he was really putting forth a real effort in trying to solve the case, where we didn't see that initially or before.
This sat on the shelf for 30 years, never got looked at. Kudos to now Deputy Chief Stephen Gonzalez from East Lansing.
In 2004, the key thing, though, is that DNA technology had come to a point where we were able to take samples from family members of Henry and create a potential profile of Henry Baltimore himself and get that entered into the system.
Time is our biggest enemy in this case. It happened so long ago that it's just difficult for people to remember. Specifically, the witnesses that lived across the street. When I tracked them down back in 2014, I think, they didn't even remember this ever even happened when they lived at 348 Oak Hill. Husband and wife now have been married ever since. Literally didn't remember this case at all. I could care less who comes forward, but somebody knows what happened to Henry. Probably multiple people know what happened to Henry. And there were clearly people back when this was happening back in the early 70s that were scared to death to come forward because what did Henry do? He came forward, he got robbed, he testified, and got killed, right? There wasn't hardly any time spent in Flint during the investigation.
That is where Roy Davis actually resided at the time.
For those of you who are listening today, please do my family a favor. And if you know something, say something.
You hear about these press conference type things going on over the country that finally somebody's willing to come forward and say, okay, I'll tell you what happened, or I know what happened, or I know who did it, or I know where Henry's at. Both the City of East Lansing and the Michigan State University are offering a $5,000 reward each for information that leads to either finding Henry or prosecuting his killers.
From time to time, I will get someone who will come and say, Baltimore, I know that name. I knew, a fella back at Michigan State. He disappeared. Any relation? And I say, yep, that was my uncle. I heard about Henry's disappearance. It must have been in the 90s. I have a daughter, Cheyenne, and then I also have a son. He is 4, and his name is Henry Baltimore as well. And then this is how you do it right here. Okay. I think it was really natural that I named him Henry, and so now he becomes a 3rd generation of a Henry Baltimore.
My son is the same way. I named my son with the same letters that sent Henry's name. It's Lamar H. Baltimore, and it's Henry Lewis Baltimore. They have the same initials. I look at my son and I can see the resemblance of Henry coming back through him, which inspires me a lot.
And then, of course, you have the birthdays. My daughter being August 16th, my son being December 16th, my Uncle Henry being January 16th. Yeah, I certainly would like to have known the path, that he took, the practices that he came into, and all the different hallways that he walked. But one day you'll walk these hallways, right?
You're not gonna go to Michigan State?
Yeah, you are. Spartan. Green and white, right?
What?
Green and white. Sometimes I'm optimistic, but I'm also a realist. And so as time goes on, finding him alive is probably not so. I think that's why it's important to help to continue to tell the story. I receive so many hits of people just on Facebook or on various media outlet websites that were writing to say, I know Henry, I knew Henry. What a wonderful young man he was. I've never heard a bad thing.
I've never given up hope, but sometimes I get frustrated because I don't know what else to do other than if I just literally dropped everything and spent all my time, all my money trying to run this down.
You spend your life wondering, and anytime you see a missing person or you see an unsolved homicide, you know what those people are going through. You know the unknown is typically the biggest weight on somebody's shoulders.
It's a struggle. It's a struggle in your heart and in your gut. It's that tug and that pull of, I don't want to let go of the past because maybe, just maybe, he is alive. At one of the holidays, I saw my father cry, and that's the only time I've ever seen him cry. I saw my mother looking at newspaper articles and always saying, I just want to know where my son is.
They went to their grave not knowing what happened. And we're always going to wonder if he's ever going to come back. Our eyes are always open.
I'm convinced Henry is somewhere between East Lansing, Michigan and Flint, Michigan. What happened to him between here and there, I don't know the answers to that. My feeling is these 2 guys knocking on his door do. I'm a firm believer that one of those 2 people was Roy.
I would just like to say, To those, if he was kidnapped, we forgive you. I certainly forgive you. Time has gone long enough that I'm not going to hold a grudge, and I certainly don't think that my family does.
You know, every time I look at the band now, I just think about him. I'm sorry. But that was the proudest moments of me being with him and watching him and how much he enjoyed that.
Not a day go by that I don't think about him. Yeah, I've got his picture right here on my cell phone. It's always there. If I turn it on, he's there.
He made his mark on Jackson Parkside, being a band member down there and then being the first black drum major at MSU.
He helped break the ceiling on that. I'd like to think that he helped integrate the band at Michigan State University.
He had good friends and people liked hanging out with him. It looked like he was doing well in school, and yeah, he's just like me and you and everybody else.
I think this will be the living document that will at least let people know what happened as we know it and what we continue to do to find answers. A community that has never known what happened to Henry Baltimore